Welcome back to the Longevity Blueprints. I'm your host, Sarah. Today we are discussing a topic that is often overlooked in traditional checkups, yet it is perhaps the single most accurate predictor of how long you will live, and more importantly, how much you will suffer in your final years. We aren't talking about cholesterol or blood pressure today. We are talking about your muscle mass, or more accurately, the invisible disappearance of it. Joining me is Dr. Michael Kottman, an expert in geriatric medicine and metabolic health. Dr. Michael, you've called muscle loss a death sentence. Isn't that a bit dramatic for just getting a little softer as we age?
I wish I were being dramatic, Sarah, but the clinical data is cold and hard. In medicine, we call this sarcopenia. It's the progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. After the age of 50, you lose about 1 to 2% of your muscle mass every single year if you aren't actively fighting it. By the time you're 70, you could have lost nearly a third of your total muscle. This isn't just about not looking good in a swimsuit. Muscle is your body's largest metabolic organ. When it disappears, your metabolism collapses, your bones weaken, and your immune system loses its primary armor.
A third of our muscle gone by 70? That sounds like a slow-motion disaster. Most people think that as long as the number on the scale stays the same, they are healthy. I see so many seniors who are proud they still weigh what they did in their 30s. Is that a false sense of security?
It is the most dangerous trap of all. We call it sarcopenic obesity or skinny fat. You might weigh 160 pounds today, just like you did at age 30, but the composition is entirely different. The muscle has been replaced by marbled fat, just like a cheap steak. This fat isn't just sitting there. It's metabolically active, pumping out inflammatory signals that damage your heart and brain. When you lose muscle, you lose your sink for blood sugar. This is why we see so many seniors developing type 2 diabetes even when they aren't overweight by traditional standards.
So the muscle is actually protecting us from disease, not just moving our limbs. But why is it a death sentence? That's a heavy term.
Because muscle is your reserve tank for survival. If you get a severe flu, or if you need surgery, or if you take a fall, your body needs amino acids to repair itself. Where does it get them? From your muscles. If you have no muscle reserve, your body can't heal. A simple fall that results in a hip fracture has a 30% mortality within 1 year for people over 65. Why? Not because of the bone break itself, but because the lack of muscle mass means they never get out of bed again. Their systems just shut down.
It's the loss of independence. The moment you can't get up is the moment the countdown starts. But many of our listeners walk every day. They play golf, they garden. Isn't that enough to keep the muscle they have?
Unfortunately, no. Walking is great for your heart, but it does almost nothing to prevent sarcopenia. To keep muscle, you have to challenge it. You have to give the body a reason to keep that expensive tissue. But here's the hook. Most people are actually accelerating their muscle loss by trying to eat healthy in the way they were taught in the 1990s. They are literally starving their muscles while thinking they're doing the right thing.
Starving their muscles while eating healthy? That sounds like a total contradiction. We need to break that down. But first, Dr. Michael, is there a way for someone listening right now to know if they are already in the danger zone? Dr. Michael, you just left us with a scary thought, that our healthy habits might actually be starving our muscles. But before we get to the food, let's talk about diagnosis. If I'm 60 years old and I feel okay, how do I know if I'm losing the battle against sarcopenia?
There are two very simple tests you can do right now, in your own home. The first one is the grip strength test. In clinical settings, we use a dynamometer, but you can feel it yourself. Can you easily open a new jar of pickles? Can you carry 2 heavy grocery bags from the car in one trip? Hand grip strength is so highly correlated with heart health and longevity that many scientists call it the 5th vital sign. If your grip is failing, your internal organs are likely aging faster than they should.
Interesting. I've noticed some people struggle with jars as they get older and they just laugh it off. But you're saying that's a red flag for their whole system. What's the second test?
The second one is the sit-to-stand test. Find a standard kitchen chair, not a soft sofa. Cross your arms over your chest so you can't use them for momentum. Now try to stand up and sit down 5 times as fast as you can. If it takes you longer than 12 seconds, or if you feel like you're going to lose your balance, your lower body muscle mass is at a critical low. This is the muscle that prevents falls. This is the muscle that keeps you out of a nursing home.
12 seconds for 5 reps? That sounds easy, but I bet for many it's a struggle. I'm thinking about the skinny fat issue you mentioned. If someone fails these tests but looks thin, what is actually happening inside their body? Why is the fat moving in while the muscle moves out?
It's a hormonal shift. As we age, our testosterone and growth hormone levels drop, while our cortisol, the stress hormone, often stays high or rises. Cortisol loves to eat muscle and store fat in the belly. But the biggest factor is anabolic resistance. This is a concept everyone over 50 needs to understand. When you're 20, you can look at a steak and a barbell and grow muscle. Your body is highly sensitive to protein. But as you age, your muscle-building machinery gets rusty. You need a much louder signal to get the same result.
So, anabolic resistance means our bodies become deaf to the signals that tell us to stay strong. That explains why just staying active isn't enough. But let's go back to what you said earlier about people starving their muscles. Many seniors are told to avoid red meat, avoid salt, and eat light. Are you saying that's bad advice?
For the muscles, it's often disastrous. Most seniors in the US and Europe are drastically under-eating protein. They have toast for breakfast, a small salad for lunch, and maybe a little pasta for dinner. They might be getting 50 grams of protein a day. For a 20-year-old, that might barely get them by. For a 70-year-old, that is a recipe for rapid muscle wasting. To overcome anabolic resistance, you actually need more protein per meal than a teenager does.
That is going to shock a lot of people. We've been told for decades that too much protein is bad for the kidneys or that we should eat less as we get older. But you're saying we need to increase it? How much are we talking about? And doesn't that come with risks?
The protein is bad for kidneys myth has largely been debunked for healthy individuals. Of course, if you have advanced kidney disease, you must be careful. But for the average senior, the risk of losing their leg muscles is far greater than the risk to their kidneys. You should be aiming for about 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But the key isn't the daily total, it's the threshold per meal. If you don't hit at least 30 grams of protein in a single sitting, you won't flip the switch for muscle protein synthesis.
30 grams in one meal. That's a lot more than a cup of yogurt. If we don't hit that 30-gram mark, what happens to the protein we did eat? Does it just go to waste? And is there a specific trigger inside that protein we should be looking for? Dr. Michael, you just mentioned a switch that needs to be flipped with 30 grams of protein. If we don't hit that mark, does our body just ignore the protein? And what is this trigger that actually tells the muscle to grow?
It's not that the body ignores it, but it uses it for other things, like fuel or basic repair of organs. It doesn't use it to build or maintain skeletal muscle. The trigger you're asking about is an amino acid called leucine. Think of leucine as the foreman on a construction site. You can have all the bricks and wood in the world, those are the other amino acids, but if the foreman doesn't show up to start the job, no house gets built.
So leucine is the foreman. How much foreman do we need to get the job started?
For an older adult, you need about 2.5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal to overcome anabolic resistance. This is usually found in about 30 to 40 grams of high-quality animal protein, like whey, beef, fish, or eggs. If you're a vegan, you have to work much harder, often needing to supplement with branched-chain amino acids because plant proteins are naturally lower in leucine. This is why many seniors who go on plant-based diets for heart health suddenly find themselves getting very weak and frail. They've lowered their cholesterol, but they've destroyed their engine.
That's a delicate balance. We want a healthy heart, but we don't want a weak body. It sounds like we've been focusing so much on the pipes that we forgot about the pump and the chassis. But let's talk about the other half of the equation, resistance training. When I say that, most people over 60 think of bodybuilders and heavy weights. They think, I'll hurt my back or I'm too old for the gym. Is that true?
It's the opposite. You are too old not to lift weights. You aren't fragile because you lift, you are fragile because you don't. Resistance training is the only thing that tells your body, hey, we're still using these muscles, don't break them down for parts. And it doesn't mean you need to bench press 200 pounds. It means you need to create tension. That could be using resistance bands, doing bodyweight squats, or using light dumbbells. The goal is to reach near failure, the point where you can't do another clean repetition.
Near failure. That sounds intense. Is it safe for someone with, say, arthritis or mild heart issues? How do they start without ending up in the physical therapist's office?
Safety is paramount, of course. I always tell my patients, start low, but don't stay low. Most people pick up a 2-pound pink dumbbell and stay with it for 5 years. That's just movement, not training. Your muscles need a reason to adapt. If you have arthritis, resistance training actually helps. It strengthens the muscles around the joint, taking the pressure off the cartilage. It's the best medicine for joint pain.
It's a complete paradigm shift. We've been told to take it easy as we get older, but you're saying we should be pushing ourselves carefully. But what about the invisible death sentence part? How does having bigger biceps or stronger quads actually prevent a heart attack or Alzheimer's?
This is the most exciting part of the research. When you contract a muscle against resistance, the muscle releases myokines. These are signaling molecules that travel through the blood to the brain. Myokines like BDNF, brain-derived neutrophilic factor, actually help repair brain cells and prevent cognitive decline. Muscle is also your primary glucose sink. 80% of the sugar you eat is cleared by your skeletal muscle. If you have more muscle, your blood sugar stays stable, your insulin stays low, and your inflammation drops.
So, muscle is essentially a pharmacy inside our own bodies, pumping out medicine every time we use it. That is an incredible way to look at it. But Dr. Michael, there is a dark side to this. What happens when someone ignores these signs? We've talked about hip fractures, but what about the vicious cycle of muscle loss?
The vicious cycle is what kills. You lose a little muscle, so you move a little less because it feels harder. Because you move less, you lose more muscle. Then your balance goes. Then you have a near fall. That scares you, so you stop going out. Now you're isolated, sedentary, and your muscles are wasting away at 3% a year. This leads to a state called frailty. Once you hit the threshold of clinical frailty, the mortality risk over the next 3 years is incredibly high. It's a slippery slope that starts with just losing a little strength.
That vicious cycle sounds like a trap that is far too easy to fall into, especially in our modern world where everything is designed for convenience. You don't even have to walk to get groceries anymore. But Dr. Michael, I want to talk about the protein versus kidney debate one more time because I know our European and American listeners are very cautious about this. Is there anyone who should not be increasing their protein?
If you have stage 4 or 5 chronic kidney disease, you must follow your nephrologist's advice strictly. But for the general aging population, the standard protein recommendations are based on the minimum needed to not get sick, not the amount needed to thrive. We are seeing a massive under-proteinization in the West. People are eating empty calories, fats, and carbs, and their muscles are literally starving in a sea of calories. If you want to avoid the invisible death sentence, you have to prioritize protein as if your life depends on it, because it does.
Prioritize protein as if your life depends on it. I love that. So if someone is listening and they are ready to change, what does a muscle-saving day look like? Give us a sample menu that hits that leucine threshold.
Let's start with breakfast. Most seniors have oatmeal or toast. That's almost zero protein. Instead, try 3 or 4 eggs or a high-quality whey protein shake with some Greek yogurt. That gets you to that 30 to 40 gram trigger right away. For lunch, don't just have a salad. Add a chicken breast or a large can of tuna. For dinner, a piece of steak or salmon the size of your palm. If you're snacking, skip the crackers and go for cottage cheese or a handful of almonds, though you'd need a lot of almonds to hit the protein goal, so lean toward the dairy or meat.
It sounds like a lot of food for someone who might not have a huge appetite. Is that another challenge? That seniors just aren't hungry enough to eat that much protein?
Absolutely. Appetite often declines with age. This is where liquid nutrition can be a lifesaver. A high-quality whey protein isolate is absorbed very quickly and is very high in leucine. It's the easiest way to supplement a meal that might be lacking. But remember, the protein is only the bricks. You still need the work. You have to stimulate the muscle.
Let's talk about that work then. For a 65-year-old woman who hasn't been to a gym in 20 years, what is the minimum effective dose of exercise? Does she need to go 5 days a week?
Not at all. The research shows that just 2 full-body resistance sessions a week can make a massive difference. We're talking 30 to 45 minutes. Focus on the big movements, a squatting movement, like sitting down and standing up, a pushing movement, like a wall push-up, and a pulling movement, like rowing a resistance band. If you do those 3 things twice a week, you are doing more for your longevity than 90% of your peers.
2 days a week. That is incredibly doable. It removes the "I don't have time" excuse. But I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the brain. You said muscle releases myokines that protect against Alzheimer's. Is there a direct link between muscle strength and staying sharp as we age?
There is a very direct link. Studies have shown that people with higher leg strength have more gray matter in their brains as they age. The muscles and the brain are in a constant conversation. When the muscles are weak and silent, the brain seems to think the body is no longer in the game, and it begins to prune its own connections. If you want to keep your mind, you must keep your muscles. Sarcopenia and dementia are 2 sides of the same coin.
2 sides of the same coin. That is a powerful and frightening connection. It means that by neglecting our physical strength, we are indirectly inviting cognitive decline. But Dr. Michael, what about sleep? We know seniors often struggle with insomnia. Does sleep affect our ability to keep muscle?
Sleep is when the construction crew does the actual building. During deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone. If you're only sleeping 4 or 5 hours, or if your sleep is poor quality, you're effectively firing your construction crew. You can eat all the protein you want, but without sleep, the muscle won't repair. It's a holistic system: protein, resistance, and recovery. If you miss one, the invisible death sentence starts to creep back in.
Dr. Michael, we've covered so much ground today, from the skinny fat trap to the leucine Foreman and the brain-muscle connection. It's clear that muscle is the currency of longevity. But as we wrap up, I want to talk to the person who feels it's too late. Maybe they are 80, maybe they already have a walker, maybe they feel like their muscles are already gone. Is there hope for them?
Sarah, this is the most important message I can give. The human body is remarkably plastic until the very last breath. There was a famous study on 90-year-old nursing home residents. These were people who were very frail. They put them on a supervised high-intensity resistance program for just 8 weeks. The result? They increased their muscle strength by over 170%. Some of them were able to stop using their walkers at 90. If a 90-year-old in a nursing home can build muscle, you can too.
170% increase at age 90? That is absolutely incredible. It really proves that the invisible death sentence can be commuted. It's not a fixed fate. So what is the muscle longevity protocol we can leave our listeners with today?
Let's give them 3 clear steps. Step 1, test yourself. Do the sit-to-stand test today. Know where you were starting. Step 2, the 30-gram rule. Every meal should have 30 to 40 grams of high-quality protein. Prioritize this over bread, pasta, or sweets. Step 3, the twice-a-week tension. Find a way to challenge your muscles twice a week. Use bands, use weights, or use your own body. Just reach that near-failure point where the muscle feels tired.
And if they do those 3 things, what can they expect in 5 years?
In 5 years, they won't just be not dead. They will be vibrant. They will be the person playing with their grandkids on the floor and getting up without help. They will have a lower risk of diabetes, a sharper brain, and a much higher chance of living to 100 with their independence intact. Muscle is the difference between living your old age and just surviving it.
The difference between living and surviving. That is such a vital distinction. Dr. Michael, thank you for being the voice of reason and for giving us a roadmap to fight back against this invisible threat. It's not just about adding years to our life, but adding life to our years.
Precisely, Sarah. Don't let your muscles disappear in silence. Speak up for your health. Pick up something heavy and eat your protein. Your future self will thank you.
To all our listeners out there, take a look at your reflection today. Don't just look at the wrinkles or the hair, look at your strength. If you feel weak, know that you have the power to change it, starting with your next meal and your next move. This has been the Longevity Blueprint. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone you care about, especially if they think just walking is enough. We'll see you next time. This podcast is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider before starting any new exercise or high-protein diet, especially if you have pre-existing kidney or heart conditions.